Hi, my name's Isaac, and this is a brand new 2024 Hyundai Tucson N-Line. And today, I'm going to review it for you guys. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Sioka Hyundai of Williamsport, Pennsylvania for allowing me to borrow this vehicle to review. For all your Hyundai needs in the Williamsport area, I'll leave a link to their website in the description below. Last time I looked at this body style of the Tucson, I reviewed a limited trim, and that inexplicably went on to be one of the most successful videos on my channel to date. So naturally, I'm trying to shamelessly recreate that magic by reviewing this N-Line trim. It's kind of like all the Disney remakes. And like those movies, I think you'll come out of this video going, yeah, it was okay, but it was missing the charm of the original. Anyway, starting here at the front end, you'll have LED headlights and LED daytime running lights. I've noticed a lot of manufacturers are starting to move their headlights to a lower portion on the front grille in favor of the LED daytime running lights and turn signals being located a little bit higher up. That gives the vehicle a sharper look, especially on this Tucson. This was one of the pioneers of that look when it was originally unveiled a couple of years ago, and I think it still holds up. It's a really sharp looking SUV, and here on the N-Line, the additional N-Line graphics that you get really add to the sleek look that this has. Moving underneath the hood in the N-Line, this is powered by a 1.6-liter inline 4-cylinder hybrid, making 226 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, and that is paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission. Disappointingly, this is the same hybrid engine available in other trims of the Tucson. The N-Line does not get any specific performance upgrades under the hood. Moving to the profile of the N-Line Tucson, starting here with the wheels and tires, you're going to get 235 55R Michelins around these 19-inch wheels. I really love the design. They are perhaps the wildest design I have ever seen on a car that I've reviewed, though I think it really works with the rest of the jagged, crazy angles that are on this SUV. You'll get an N-Line badge right here, and then up here you will have a blacked out mirror cap with a turn signal indicator, and then there's a stink bug right here and a spider, which sounds like the beginning of some sort of children's book. Oh, a second stink bug! Wow, this really is turning into a kid's book. But I don't think those guys are included on most Tucson N-Lines. I think it's specifically this one right now. Like, you'd have to buy it immediately after I finish reviewing it. Anyway, continuing on here, you do get roof rails. These are dealer installed. And then as we continue along the rear, you can see more of those jagged lines, which I think is a really bold choice, but I think it pays off here on the Tucson. Moving to the rear, one thing I noticed as I was doing my walk around initially for this SUV, I kind of do a pre-review walk around, is that the rear parking sensors are incorporated into this hazard light right here, which I think is neat. I have never seen that on another vehicle that I've reviewed. I think that is a very clever implementation and a neat little addition. Down here you will get a dual exhaust, though it's only on one side, and then H-Track hybrid badge right there, and Tucson right there. A backup camera in the standard backup camera spot, and then if we tap down here, we do have the ability to open the lift gate. Stepping inside here, you get quite a lot of cargo area. And you'll have a 12-volt right there with a very wide cover. I think that's interesting. Then you will have the ability to lower your second row seats for even more storage. And then if we open this up down here, there is a, you're gonna love this, tire mobility kit in lieu of a spare tire. It's like a fix-a-flat kit. A lot of vehicles include those nowadays, though you do get a decent amount of storage in here regardless. And then before we move fully to the interior, I want to highlight this button up here that will lower your lift gate. Lower the lift gate. That's an oxymoron. And then looking at the key here really quick, you do have lock, unlock, panic, remote start, and the ability to lift and lower the lift gate. That's a tongue twister. Maybe that could go with the stink bugs and the spider if I ever write a children's novel. And that button right there gives you the ability to do that. Moving to the interior of the N-Line Tucson, I really like the red accents that continue from the door panel to the steering wheel, all the way over to the dashboard, and then into the seats and even the armrest right here. What's particularly cool is you get the N-Line badge right underneath the headrests on the seats as well. I think that's a cool touch. And even though this trim is aesthetic and doesn't change anything under the hood, Hyundai didn't skimp. They even add a little N-Line badge down here on the steering wheel. But let's talk about the actual features inside the interior of the N-Line. I guess inside the interior is redundant. But anyway, you'll have your window controls right here, as well as lock and unlock in your mirror controls. This button does the illumination on your fully digital gauge cluster. We'll talk about that in a sec. You have another button to raise and lower that lift gate, traction control off, and a battery reset button. Down here on the steering wheel, it is tilting and telescoping. And then you have a whole host of buttons on here. They control the Bluetooth, your volume, radar guided cruise control, but also some of the settings inside this fully digital screen right here. You can really mess with a lot, but that is not super surprising to see. A lot of vehicles have many different settings you can mess with on the center gauge cluster now that a lot of manufacturers are going fully digital. One thing I am a little disappointed by on this N-Line is it does not have the side mirror cameras that help with the blind spot when you turn on the turn signal. Normally the camera picture would appear in that little gauge, helping with merging. It is an incredible technology that Hyundai and Kia have been pioneers in, though you don't see it here on this particular N-Line. That doesn't mean that the rest of the technology is bad, though. This infotainment system, for example, is very quick, super spiffy. I love how quickly it moves between different menus. You, of course, have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as features. There's quiet mode, valet mode, a lot of different things to mess with. If we put the vehicle into reverse, you can see the backup camera pulls up on one side of the screen, and that does have guiding lines, so if I turn the wheel, that will help guide us. And then what's interesting is SiriusXM comes up on the other side of the screen. Now, a lot of manufacturers have wide screens nowadays, but they don't have a camera that is wide angle enough to fill the entirety of the screen. So a lot of manufacturers opt for just putting black bars in between, but not here on Hyundai. You get your music station kind of still pulled up. And if you want to switch between stuff, you can. I think that's really interesting. And then one more thing I wanted to highlight is there is sort of a top-down view if you want to get a little bit more accurate as you back up. So I think that's super fun as well. Throwing it back into park here, we will look and see there is volume, map, navigation, seek, radio, media setup. Title of my autobiography, Seek Radio Media Setup. I guess I missed the word track in there. And then you'll have your climate controls down here. All of those are very nicely laid out, though they are like haptic feedback buttons. They're not actually physically there. They're just touch sensitive. So some people might like that, some people might not, but I do at least appreciate that they're physically there in a sense that I don't have to go through the whole menu to get to those climate. See, like for example, I can pull up climate controls right here, but I don't have to do all that from right here. I can kind of mess with all of that tangibly down here without taking my eyes off the road. If we move a little bit further down, you do have wireless charging, 2 USBs, and another wide 12-volt cover. And then you'll have heated seats up here, a button to pull up your camera view, and hill descent control, which is cool to see on this SUV. You also have a locker and your drive mode selector. That changes up how this gauge looks. It's cool to see the sport mode and eco as well. That changes it up, and I think it's neat to see that they've incorporated that design. Then this is your shifter. I'm not as much of a fan of this, so you'll have reverse, neutral, drive, and park. They're just buttons. You put your foot on the brake, you throw it in reverse, you hit neutral, and then you hit drive. Those, of course, come up in that gauge cluster, though I prefer a traditional shifter. Hyundai tends to be moving a little bit further away from that. So unfortunate, but that's how we're going. You'll have another N-line badge right there, and then your electronic parking brake and auto hold, 2 cup holders, and opening up our little center console here. Nothing in here but storage, but that is nice. And then you'll have your hazard button up here and a glove box down there. I don't talk about the glove box a lot, but it's a decently sized one, all things considered. And then you will have a traditional mirror right here. It is auto dimming, though there is no camera incorporated into it. Up here you'll have SOS and then the controls for your panoramic moonroof. It is super open, very airy in here. I love how it feels, and just overall just super comfortable. There is quite a lot of features in this Tucson N-Line, even though it might not have all the top-end stuff that the Limited has. Moving to the second row seats of the N-Line, they have that red trim like up front, and they are equally as comfortable to sit in. One thing I wanted to highlight real quick was there is a pull tab right here that will fold down your second row, giving you easier access to the back right here. You can pull that again, and that will pop them up, and then you can just pull it up. Closing the door in here, I have pretty ample legroom. I'd say I have 5 inches of legroom, and with this sunroof, maybe 3 or 4 inches of headroom. That's really nice to see. And then you'll have 2 climate vents back here, 2 USBs, and then if we pull this down, you get a little armrest with cup holders. All right, driving the Tucson N-Line. This is a very responsive SUV. You know, pedal to the floor, it handles great. It really, really does pick up quite well, and it's a very comfortable, smooth ride. I think this N-Line is very stylish, and the seats are super comfortable, and the transmission shifts very smoothly, especially here on acceleration. As I gun it, it really, really does handle quite nicely. The steering feels great, and so does the braking. And there's nothing that I have to say about this that's bad. I think it's a great SUV overall, and I would recommend it. Well, that's just about going to wrap up my review of this Tucson. I suppose if I had to levy a complaint against it, I could go on some sort of long diatribe about how I wish that there was more performance upgrades on the N-Line, but overall, it's a good SUV that gets great gas mileage and handles really well. Before I go, though, I'd like to mention that I am a Christian, and if you have any prayer requests, I would love to be able to pray for you guys. You can leave those in the comment section below. And lastly, I'd like to close out on a weekly scriptural verse reading. This week, I'm reading Psalm 92, verse 1. It is good to give thanks to the Lord, to sing praises to your name, O Most High. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Take care. Oh, I guess also, do you like my wall of car badges? This is new. I just got this. I just started collecting them. I talked about this in my car logos are weird video, and now I got it. So, what do you think?